Oh my goodness. Holy smokes.
That's crazy.
And he wins a piece there. What a shot. Oh my goodness.
As Magnus said, he's devilishly tricky, Firouzja.
Alireza Firouzja is devilishly tricky, and that was the reaction of the commentators when he played an amazing queen sacrifice to set up a piece win, and we'll see it now in this game. So this was played against Anish Giri. Firouzja had the white pieces here, and we saw this Berlin defence on the board. So this was a blitz game, and it was played in the Chess Bra May Invitational 2020 of last year. So the Berlin is characterised by this knight f6 move here, instead of going down the standard Rory Lopez lines with pawn to a6. After knight f6, Firouzja now plays pawn to d3 here. So the most common way of playing is with castles, and then you can go down these lines where the queens get exchanged, and it's not always difficult for white to prove an advantage there. See the Kasparov-Kramnik match of 2000. So we had pawn to d3 from Firouzja. He wants to keep pieces on the board, keep tension. We now had bishop to c5. Bishop to a4 now. This is a slightly unusual move. Normally white will play something like c3 here first, maybe even castles. Slight move order trickery, but we get similar positions. Now castles from black, castles from white, pawn to d6, pawn to c3. And now black starts a common remaneuver that you see in these structures, which is knight to e7. So that knight is headed for this f4 square if possible, and you don't ever really want to play g3 in these structures as white, or you weaken these light squares around the king big time. So we now had knight b to d2 from Firouzja, standard development, bishop to b6, tucking out of the way, anticipating d4, rook to e1 now, pawn to c6, pawn to h3. The g4 square is often critical in these lines, and black often goes h6 himself as well. We had knight to g6 now from Giri, bishop to c2, so this piece is often so dangerous in these structures, and that's why white tucks it back. Although it's blocked right now, later white plans to liberate with d4, and then it can become dangerous. Rook to e8 now from Giri, and pawn to d4. No messing about, breaking in the centre and looking to open up the pieces. And here Giri goes slightly wrong. He takes in the centre, Firouzja recaptures, and we can see that there's now this big central pawn mass, giving Firouzja space and space to manoeuvre his pieces. Better would probably have been something like pawn to h6 or bishop to c7, just sitting on the position for a moment and maybe looking to play d5 themselves later as black. Okay, Giri took in the centre here. We had this recapture, and now he goes pawn to d5. So this is his idea, but after pawn to e5, which Firouzja plays, he now gets a nice space advantage, and he's kicking the black pieces around. So knight into h5 here, looking at this square, and that's why the knight jumps out of the way. Firouzja also could have considered knight to f1, but this is certainly a good move. We had knight h to f4 here, coming in on that square. And now bishop to e3, developing and holding the centre. We'll see that this bishop later swaps itself for the knight. But you don't want to do that immediately, because after takes, although you've chopped that piece in one, you've brought this g6 knight into the game. If we just look at things here, whilst this is a great square, as long as that knight is sitting on the square, this one's kind of kept out of the game. So that wouldn't be the best way to trade for white. So bishop e3, now we had pawn to f6, and this is a great move from Giri. If he just sits on the position with, say, bishop to e6, well, this is instantly bad because of queen d2, and you're actually losing a piece here and forced to take here. But coming back here, say he played a move like pawn to a5, gaining some queenside space, well, again queen to d2, and it's just getting uncomfortable for the black pieces after you retreat back like this. So that's why we had pawn to f6, trying to break in the centre, and Firouzja correctly captures here. The centre's coming under fire, so you don't want that to start collapsing. The queen recaptures, and now he takes on f4. Again, just to run it back a move, if queen d2 in this position, now things are a bit different because you've got that dangerous queen in the game. So black could actually take on g2 here, a very thematic sacrifice, because after king recaptures, you've got problems with these two pieces. Now black can come crashing through with bishop takes, and after king takes, queen takes, everything's just falling apart. So that's why you have to be a bit careful here as white now, not to get too casual with queen to d2. Firouzja correctly sees this and takes that knight, and now we have rook captures on e1, forced. If you immediately take back the piece, then we've got this. So that's why we had the rook captures, queen recaptures, and now you have to take with the queen. Again, if you take with the knight here, there's tactical problems by the fact that this bishop never got developed and the back rank is weak. So in this position, you can go queen e8 check. And after the queen blocks, we have a really nice shot. Pause it if you'd like. Bishop takes on h7. Really standard idea. Decoying the king away, and then we take the queen. So coming back here, that's why after the bishop captured on f4, queen takes is forced. And now we had this sequence. The bishop gives itself up, pawn recaptures, queen e8 check, queen blocks. Again, if the king steps away, you're in real trouble. Pawn h4 is just a killer because knight g5 is coming, followed by queen h8 checkmate, and there's just no good way to stop it. So that's why the king can't step away, the queen blocked instead. And now Firouzja picks up this pawn here. He could have even taken here and gone into a better endgame with something like this. But okay, he wants to keep the pieces on the board, he wants to attack, this is blitz, always his style to do so, and we'll see what happens in a moment. But now this does allow a counter shot from Giri, which he takes, of bishop takes on h3. If pawn recaptures, this knight is dropping, and this is bad for white. So Firouzja correctly ignores this threat, and just calmly plays rook to e1, bringing that rook to the open file and setting up tactics. Now we had bishop to f5 from Giri, really good move. He has to play actively here and challenge this queen because of the influence it has around the king. Say he were to play a casual passing move like pawn to a6, now you're running into a deadly threat from white of rook to e5, and this rook is swinging to the h-file, with deadly effect around the king. So that's why Giri had to play actively. Bishop f5, the queen moved away. Now we had queen to f6, good move, just coming off the back rank and preparing to bring this rook across. But now Giri missteps. So we have knight g5 here. Bishop to g6 is a good move, it kicks the queen back. And now he needed to go rook to f8, keeping the connection between these pieces, pressuring this pawn, and he's doing quite well here. But he goes rook to e8, just desperately looking to trade off pieces, and this sets up a great shot for Firouzja. If you want to pause it and have a look, please do. He plays queen h7 check, double exclam, really nice move. He's decoying this bishop away from the protection of the rook, because now the bishop has to take. If you go king f8, this is just checkmate. So bishop takes, now he takes the rook, queen blocks, and we have this sequence of events. The knight picks up with check. Just a completely winning endgame, two pieces against one. Giri threw in the towel. So watch out for Firouzja, a devilishly tricky player, and it'll be really exciting to see what he can do in the Rapid and Blitz World Championship starting 26th of December. If you want to see all my coverage of those games, then click here to subscribe, and to see another amazing Firouzja game, click here. Thanks very much for watching, and see you soon.